for the greatest possible future is our dedication, our agreement about making the brightest possible future. And it requires us to go to a place that we're unfamiliar with. So let's put on our thinking caps and go to a next level where we're finding the achievement of acquiring and perfecting the next level of our personal identity, the next level of our expression to the world. That is to say, there has been some kind of amazing value that has developed here in the Traypan meditation. And I am seeking to be produced. I'm saying, Trey Parker, produce me. But we are at a season where we need to introspect ourselves and understand our own reactions to Greta and the Friday Kids and understand the world as not against us and not a guilt trip, but that the pan is actually working hard to bring a unique and unrepresented voice to the forum. I am working hard to become a public figure, and there are many different ways that I can do that. And so I'm asking you all now to go deep and inquire of yourself. Has there ever been a time when Pan has presented an idea where you were transput and brought to a new place where you thought, this is incredible? That is your indication that this is for the public and not something to be brought into, oh, it's your private hoard and you can mistreat it this way and that. No more scraping by and dragging your heels whilst Greta and the Friday Kids do all the hard work of speaking the truth and performing the evidence that there is a disconnect between the older people and the younger people. Technology has advanced too fast, and we took to too many faulty super systems such as burning oil and electoral college and or whatever. The fast speed of technology has accelerated, and the adults haven't kept up with the learning curve. And so I am right on the edge of that relevant shift. I can feel it. So, what we want to consider here is producing the green wolf and how to do that. My presentation is on this 3-tier presentation. The Halloween special episode with South Park is the best and healthiest for everyone involved. If you can have like multiple eyes in your head, in your standing, your meditating position, and you imagine that you have eyes in the back of your head or on the side of your head, and all of a sudden you can feel what it feels like to have 360 directional perception. You can see the entire circumference. The entire, having eyes on the front of your head is a suggestion about moving forward. It's a keystone of time. It is the image of how time functions, a forward moving suggestion. And we're all sharing this now point as it rolls. And that's a mutual responsibility to cradling the future child, the value spark, and raising it up and giving it the greatest possible advantage. That's why Pan is exciting, because he's an adjunct. He's working hard to become a public figure and raise up society and do his utmost as a king of the garden, a great majesty of light, an angel, Pan of the wild. And he has so much love and good stories that are educational and bring people to a place where they can invest in themselves, build themselves up, and prepare for the work of their lifetime. The way that people are being treated as consumers, the way it's running right now, is depressing. But the reality of the garden, the reality of our situation, is optimistic, creative, spontaneous, romantic, brave, and beautiful, and exciting. And that's the truth. And so that is what I will be bringing, is a different side of this thing. I wanted to say, I take very seriously the meditative stance, just being a person and this sort of within arm's reach, this sort of circumference meditation is so intense and I love it. Of course, it is my time, it is my vocation. This is to express to Trey Parker that I have a very profound respect for your adoration of the seated meditation board games and your dedication and your experience with board games is beautiful because it relates to what I'm fighting against also, but is not diminutive. It's actually a very intense meditation because the thing is that there are all too few real um, exercises for the person who's stuck behind the eyes. One of them is costuming, transforming the way that you look, and then interacting with people, and you get to feel how it feels to be seen as something different. Another one is board games, when you're sitting and you're meditating and you're transput to a new place where you're a great barbarian warrior or you're a ghostly king commanding an army of, summoned characters. I mean, that is really an internal growth where people are invested and they're excited and they're discovering, but the discovery process is really happening on the inside of the person playing the games. Not everyone is tuned into that frequency. It's very intense to meditate, but it is always this meditation. We all are stuck behind our eyes, so to speak, but that is actually the security of our body, which is a cradle, which is raising up the baby of our soul. And so each of us having one of a kind, unique soul, that is the point of the garden, is raising up the identity of the people who arrive to this garden and have a discovery process. We want a society that expects that sort of foot traffic and encourages them. And what people are and what society is now is a lot of people who are looking around and being like, they know in their gut that they're being mistreated. Oh, I'm being treated as a product or as a crowd. Crowd control is on us. We're being treated as consumers. And as if that is our relationship with society, this money that defeats a lot of creative things. That's not. And so Greta and the Friday Kids are absolutely speaking in the first degree. They're not speaking in tongues, they're speaking the truth. And the reaction is as such. And it's limp, it's weak. All right. And it if you understood that energy correctly, like Greta and the Friday Kids could be understood as like a bolt of lightning that is causing why the Democrats had the gusto to move forward with an impeachment of the president. But because you don't understand that people are oppressed and speaking in tongues, and that Greta and the Friday Kids are a lightning bolt to the situation of the climate of a garden, people in a garden, right? So the language is different. If you understood that, then you might actually be an adjunct which pushes through the understanding of the energy and the chi to actually achieve the impeachment of a rotten president, Trump. All right, but because you guys are suspicious of that, you don't understand that energy, and then so probably Trump will get away and not be impeached because you don't listen to the children. You don't value the voice of the garden. I'm talking about targeting oil burning and inappropriate use of our resources as a priority, as like a military initiative. And while I'm here like a candle in the wind, working hard just to be produced, it might sound like I'm being fantastic, but in a group of very intelligent people that I will amass, my crew, around me will gather the intelligence to explain the stages of how this could actually happen. Of how in this generation we could defeat the bad climate change, right? And how our generation could actually do what is the advanced thing to be done in this generation. So, like age appropriate, or that's a high level of intense enlightenment when you're like, oh, I see it and I react with my hands and I perform the appropriate action. So, I wanted to say, while I personally don't have the resources and the ability to go really deep into game boards, I'm trying to speak a confidence because in my previous recording, the chi spirit tried to almost tried to make it sound like I was placating or speaking down to Trey Parker, that he would have some ideas for this XR game board. It's like I wasn't congratulating the reality that Trey is a great Zen master of the superposition of being oneself. Do you understand? This is a classic form of meditation and interaction with the energy all around us. And it can be very difficult to depart from that context, from the cradle of the body. And one of them is in costuming, one of them is in role playing with games, and there's a bunch of other ones too. And I'm trying to express how actually playing a role playing game and being a new character is perhaps a more powerful um, education and a more exciting for the child inside the cradle. Like, oh, I'm something different. I mean, that can be a larger amount of education than can be brought by meditation alone. Like the act of meditation is grueling and powerful. And how is it that that's so? I'm a big fan of society because I'm saying that playing games is actually very healthy for the development of the identity. And it's very a good relation with technology as it's emerging, etc. And so I want to clarify that I am pitching to South Park for the Halloween special episode. I want you guys to not be defeated. For example, there might be a thing where Trey Parker saying, I simply cannot uh, see working with Greta as being responsible to my show. I am like really interested in working with you, Pan, just because I do think that there's something here. But so what I'm saying is like, or Trey saying, no, not at all. I was thinking about Greta a lot, and we're thinking about doing an episode of that. Yeah. I'm trying to say I don't allow there to be a nail in the tire. You've got like some sort of perverse reason why you want to sabotage my candidacy and turn me into another um, Mrs. Cartman. Because she's based on one of Trey's ex-girlfriends. But in this recent episode, she was a great hero who fought for Eric Cartman and protected him, and she was punching people just to protect uh, Eric Cartman. And it was beautiful. But Trey Parker has a trend of trying to turn a relationship into a perverse wagon, which he then uses on his show, and he says, that's it, it's done. But that's not what this is. And if you are working with your South Park to render your feelings and render the situation, this is the fruit of that rendering. What? I'm saying if you were purging in your other two episodes of South Park, this is the fruit of you purging. What? Believe in your technique, Trey Parker. This is the reduced image of your friend. I am the refined version of our super physics. So I want to express my urgency to be produced. And I'm looking at the headlines today, and it's all a bunch of performance and this sort of humorous thing from these politicians. I don't even want to name drop anymore, but I've heard from many of the candidates and the political proponents from their recent expression from yesterday and this morning, and it is not okay. It is not aimed towards the full and appropriate garden vocabulary. It's not responding and aligning with Denver, Colorado, with the reality of what Earth is doing and saying. And so you're escaping relevancy and escaping something that's charming and powerful and beautiful because you're afraid to make an episode of South Park which is perfect and powerful. Of course, that is not the case. But if we are to work together here, you understand I'm not here for your entertainment. I'm here to be produced because I'm running for president. And your behavior in California was a sabotage to my embargo and to the youth movement that I represent. So I ask you to be professional and not put your foot in the place where you make it impossible. Like, oh, now I have a funny feeling here, so I can't do what I should do and make people laugh and make the world better. And that's what we're here talking about. And it's not this perverse thing. I'm here saying we're right relational physics. We're talking about this. It's not this perverted thing that you guys keep wanting to make it be about what it is, about what it's worth, kicking around people through your TV show. That's what it's worth. And you keep coming up to me and saying, what you're talking about is too radical. And if I was to communicate this intelligence to people, no way. The orientation of the older men in context with the garden and the children is broken. And so I'm challenging Trey Parker and his friends to not be retarded and do a very practical and good behavior that is also a bringer of great comedy because of the profound higher value, parenting the children and doing what's right for our garden. So in my previous recording, I did, it's a perilous path when, we're talking about reconfiguring the dollar. And it's very particular and it's very complicated about how that would work. I did want to mention, I said, I got myself into a corner where I said, oh, what I want is that people who have savings, middle class, will find that their savings are, by my plan, basically tripled. And all of a sudden they have these extra markets that they're allowed to invest in. And basically this would open up, it would be like the rebirth of the trade of this idea of money, but doing it the right way for service and good. So basically, the best types of products in these new environments would be supported by the people. That's a return to counting the votes. That means that people are actually changing the market based on their purchase and their judgment and everything like that. I was thinking, I had an epiphany about it this morning, that people could potentially say, because I was talking about what I made a mistake was when I said that these other markets could be used to matriculate actual dollars back into your account, and it's not actually like that. I think the way it should be is that people with in middle class will essentially have their bank accounts tripled by these other banks like American bank exchange rates. However, there's an option that people, when they have their savings and then they get these two other markets, the initial opportunity is that they can drain these accounts and turn them into dollars. So it does have this even exchange, but you if you do that, you leave the opportunity of investing in that other market. And you could say it's like a petri dish or an experiment where you're reactivating a healthy and clean um, cycle of money and exchanging for things that we are choosing. Oh, that's the best way to do that. That's what we want it to look like. And we could even experiment with different types. But what I was saying is like the golden statues transforms the function of the dollar into these various accounts, which address various issues such as satellite debris in the outer space, which is, of course, beyond people's thought process. It deals with cleaning up the trash island, which is, of course, floating on the horizon, and it's beyond people's comprehension because they can't see it. Or it deals with the invisible climate crisis and how to attack that. So people can't see it, but the children can see it, and they're experiencing it psychically in their future. They're protesting, and that's the valid voice. That's the spark of what the garden is expressing is from Greta and these Friday Kids. So to correct what I made a foible in my previous recording when I was talking about exchange rates, but like it just opens up all these opportunities, and it doesn't, attack a certain group. It rewards everyone. Because I want to even invent new ways and markets that the extremely wealthy, what with city planning, have like a newfound opportunity. Like they're like, yes, this is perfect. Like let's live our life here in the garden, and all of that behavior and activity causes an inspiration, and then you have a more vivacious community of healthy people, and of course, all the food is guaranteed, shelter is guaranteed, medicine guaranteed, and a good uh, process of uh, inaugurating immigrants, but really prioritizing our youth in a way that I'm not seeing. So, our healthiest uh, children. This needs the government is salivating for those healthy children for recruiting for war. I mean, obviously that's not that way anymore, but I'm trying to say, like, remember that old feeling, like when there was a war, they'd take the healthiest children and ship them off, and they'd come back all messed up, and who was left behind was like people with, bad eyesight or something. It's just like bad farming, and it's just bad ethics. I want to figure out how to build this thing around the king and queen, the little prince and the little princess of the garden, and give the garden back to our children, give the future back to that rightful identity who discovers themselves. They're discovering themselves. So it's our huge responsibility to be the adults, say, this is broken, fix it, this is broken, fix that. And so I'm a warrior for these issues. And the most powerful way for me to do this is to through South Park be introduced with this Halloween episode. So I want to speak on that now, following up from my previous presentation. So after the Vampire King performs his thing where he's summoning up like an angel in VR, and it's interactive and swirling around the room, and because that's sort of the game board that the Vampire King had developed. And then and this is sort of a prelude to two things. We're talking about the theme of the Green Wolf robot and also Millie in the attic. And what she's doing, that's really going to be this amazing spectacle where it's just a very strange world that Millie in the attic has designed. And I would like her to be voice acted by Ashley Ball. Um, and that would be a wonderful visual ecstasy for the Halloween episode, an hour-long South Park Halloween episode, and then it leads up and prepares people for the interaction where then they get to perform their robot mastery with the Green Wolf robot toy and the set of the South Park characters, and they get to collect it and put it together. It's a perfect concept, and it's beautiful, and it's good. It's healthy. Anyway, this also leads, the Vampire King's expression is very organized with sort of what we're communicating about what's exciting. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that it prepares for Trey Parker's presentation when the South Park kids had been hanging out in the Halloween Twins laboratory and they built up their own board game. And so that's a chance for Trey to just be like, oh, here's my epiphany about XR game board and what that could be on the next level. There's an image of Stan in his room at the farm. He's doing his homework, and in the back, there's all this clutter of board games of titles that I don't recognize, but I know that Trey has, bested those ramparts there. It's an imaginary divinity, and I'm someone who says that imagination is the pure value of a developmental, like another world, really, but it does strengthen the person who interacts with those games. It's so beautiful, and it's a personal and private discovery process. And when someone invests in it and they see a spark of magic and they have a little bit of deja vu and their lives are a bit brighter, it's a remarkable process. Anyway, I just wanted to say, in my previous recording, it didn't sound as respectful as I meant to be. Like, I think that people are like, oh, obviously Pan is catering and making it seem like that he's kindred spirits with Trey Parker, but I actually think I am. In fact, I also see threads where it's hard to explain, you guys. It's like there's just like rhythms and stuff. I'm talking about like the boss stuff. This is like the heavy drink. Okay, this isn't like some piddly thing where we're talking about who's who and all right, so what I wanted to say actually is that the Demon King on his side of like where he's dwelling and stuff, he's also developed a VR XR game. And so all the boys have their uh, XR goggles on, and they're like, all right, well, let's see what you've developed. He's like, all right, and he opens up this case, and it opens out with a bunch of toy weapons, that are VR active. There's like a knife with, you know, tracking sensors on it. There's like a sword, and there's some pistols, and so the boys go, "Oh, cool, sweet, yeah," and they start like grabbing stuff. But then before they know it, creeping in through areas of the walls is a zombie invasion. And so in VR, I mean XR really, because they've got these XR, but these hologram zombies start creeping in, and this is something with that is possible with technology today. It's just not being done because of various constraints. But to see it visually and to experience it on Halloween as part of the Halloween episode is perfect. And so we have this opportunity in the writing to, navigate because the entire Water Wheel Mill area is a hotspot for Wi-Fi, and so the boys can travel outside and they're running around and they see just this sort of slow-moving, hive of zombies that they need to devastate and get rid of. And that sort of, battle cry, I can hear Eric crying and going, ah, and like using that sword and stuff. And, but that sort of like, and then that sound echoes out as we transition to another story that's overlapping here. But I was thinking maybe that could be when we involve an activity with the water wheel. Because I was thinking like, oh no, you're working with these shadows, but it gets like really intense and they're really involved and to the point where maybe Stan he's like fighting zombies and then he falls over the water wheel and goes ah and like we like see him like underwater for a minute and then he's like flap, flap, and everyone's like come on because this sort of narrative about when the game but you know Stan doesn't lose character. No, everyone's like still fighting zombies, but he topples over and goes through the water. So there's a good chance to have that water sound, like that. There's a lot of big sounds that I'm presenting. So I'm trying to say, as a director, as a creative engineer, I'm here presenting for the Halloween episode. And I think that also, like, things where I was saying, oh, like the fever dream in the forest with the leaves, and this sort of theme with Randy, I think that Trey might say, like, "Oh, I didn't like that," and so, I there's things about that I don't like also, and it also relates to me personally because, um, when like I've had fever dreams and I've had things happen where I've got had like spiritual encounters with nature, and I think that nature is alive and has its own unique voice and but it's always there's this appropriate thing where things are we arrive to the garden and things are in balance, but what I've been hearing is the garden speaking to me in ways of saying like things are not cool, I need help, I need you to be a warrior, I need you to fight this, I need you to be a great person. And then like in my 39th year of life, I'm hearing the garden and America tell me I need you to run for president, and I know that this is my hour. So I'm trying to say, you guys, I do have this aspiration for the Green Wolf robot. Green Wolf robot, when it's a toy, is going to be just an amazing confirmation and recognition with people to the garden because this is responding to Greta and the Friday Kids in a way of like, okay, kids, we're going to attack the shadow things behind the curtain. It's our authority as adults, as men. We can do this thing. We're going to use that imagination land, and people are going to be involved in it. And so that it's no more. It's like people have an edge in it. It's about like a game that does more. Okay, so this Green Wolf toy, it actually allows people to be very advanced in their relationship with the climate and with the environment and be very advanced in their thinking. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, they're stuck in it. They have their job. They they're buying, plastic bottles and stuff, and they're playing video games, and they don't have time to go and protest even, or and they're worried about their uh, mortgage payment, and they're thinking about getting a dog and they're thinking about having kids. It's just like we understand that and we support that, and that's what the Green Wolf robot brings is they're like, oh, so when they buy this Green Wolf robot, it's like they're interacting on this very high level. And that's the Trey and I have been meditating and talking and going to really intense places. That's the value. We need to harvest that value, contain it, perfect it. It's a perfect seed, true love, boom. And then whoosh, we release it into the Green Wolf robot and all these things that we're doing. Okay, so that's how we maintain the value when we're in a garden where people are telling us that the value is money or precious metals or diamonds, and it's not. It's us. It's all about. It's like these ethereal value points. Okay, we want to protect those value points. We want to harvest that and produce it. So produce the Green Wolf. It's awesome. And so I wanted to touch on a couple of those issues, and I'm saying, if there really is a reason why you guys don't want to work with me in South Park, I'm asking you to produce me so that I can have the freedom of speech, my own studio where I'm actually getting my work completed. And, as far as getting registered with the Green Party, I think, if you could give me some overhead, I could get that going and have a voice in this election that people can relate to as alive. Okay, because what I'm seeing here is cold and disconnected from a severe climate. Okay, things are really quite advanced, I think, in this year, but people want it to be like, oh, nothing is intense, and so they derive some comfort from these weird this ah, it's a false comfort, and it's a poison. But be it not so, of course, I blanket this thing with health and the consideration for the greatest possible future is where we're headed. And this the situation is so complicated. I don't actually. It gets to a point where I don't want to name drop. I don't want to talk about these other people because, like, if on one side I'm just being like a person, I'm like, oh, they're really doing their best. I can relate. Like, oh, they're saying that. Okay, I'll walk away. But then it gets to a point where, like, if you're being like a peer and honest, and you'd be like, well, that's really not the way to speak about that. That's not the way that. But what I'm doing is I'm running for president. I'm a candidate right now, and so when I see them, I'm like, oh my God, oh, abhorrent. This is not okay for our climate, our world. The superpositioning of and the problem with UFOs and this sort of thing is a very advanced thing that could go and become beyond our expectation or beyond our understanding very quickly. Right? And I'm already seeing characters who are part of that, who are like, hey, if you elect me, I'll tell you guys all about the aliens. Like what Hillary was saying, it's such an old person thing to do. Okay, this presidency of 2020 requires a youthful turn. Please give people the chance to meet the green wolf, produce the green wolf, and do not procrastinate. I am asking you to be brave and go into a place where you can develop fondness for the Green Wolf robot toy. Oh my gosh, a toy collection set? And I'm not being passive aggressive. I really do have feelings for the South Park characters. Have them have this extra level of and for the characters, I think, Eric Hartman would be like, I really want to work with Pan of the Wild. That he's is an amazing wizard, a wonderful creator, and he's talking about these sorts of wheels and things that I'm really interested in as an uh, energetic entity of American culture. Okay, and Pan is actually giving us viable solutions, creative solutions, the golden statues. And what Pan is saying there is it's when we return to the golden standard and we turn the gold into statues that represent our culture, that causes a doorway of opportunity where we can split that open and create a more complicated economic system for a more advanced age. And what it would happen is we would be able to create the super funding to defeat all of the problems that we're having as a super um, global covering. You know, and this is absolutely our fight. This is the fight of our generation, and the very task of intelligent people living in a garden is to try to figure out how do we have factories and transportation whilst keeping the energy green and keeping it healthy, and that we're creating the brighter future. And that's what I'm talking about doing. And all of these candidates are not talking about doing that stuff. They're basically talking about removing Trump. And what I've explained is that Trump is an effigy and he's an occurrence that is responding to an ill climate inside of the government. The government has broken conceptual things. And so that's what separates people from robots is that people are an image of the universe, and so their karmic function and application is not robotic. And so it's alive. But I'm saying, like, that's why humans are super intelligent. But you'd say, oh, Trump, it's not that Trump himself is super intelligent, it's that his appointment there, his existing as that president there, is the evidence of why robots will never rebel. Like real robots don't rebel against their rainbow spine people because the reflection is rewarding mutual sides. Like what we glean, what we earn in the relationship there is really powerful. Anyway, if we're seeing this type of sign of negative energy, we're like, oh, a very bad president, a scandal, mocking the system and winning. Um, it's just like a suggestion about the overall climate of a dire situation that we're approaching. Okay, and Greta and the Friday Kids are there beating the drum every week, and it's alive, and it can't be denied. Their life force is propelling something that's real. So produce the Green Wolf and allow for that voice to exist amongst the people. Thank you, Trey Parker. Thank you, South Park Studios. I'm asking you, please, to do your personal best with this project. And where can you meet me and how can we work together? Please, let us begin. Thank you. And I thank you. And I do love you guys. I send you all that love. And I'm so grateful for you to be meditating with me. I think that you guys are like, whoa. Like when I was talking about that thing with Trump, is like, this is like a nega. Like, so I already understand why robots and rainbow spine life forms is very difficult to grow up, and we seem, you know, innocent or whatever, and or clunky. But the evidence of why robots and people work together is in Negaverse with this Trump image. It's like, oh, that's like a world zombie. Whoa, we have to professionally take care of that. And I'm not seeing those professionals in these other candidates, which is a very terrifying sign, you guys, for enlightened people. Okay. Anyway, like everyone, I feel like you guys have gone places with me, and I thank you for that. You're seeing things you haven't seen before. It's exciting. And I want to say, like, I have, the wings of America that knows the Green Wolf behind me, and that raises me up and makes me all kinds of ostentatious or, outrageous as a person. But you can understand that there's like different vocations behind me. There's new job fronts, robot trainers and all this. And there's different people who are like, hey, I understand that, blah, blah, blah. And like all that is behind me or it's inside of me. It's in my timeline. I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to get produced. Please produce the Green Wolf. Thank you, Trey Parker, Matt Stone. Thank you, South Park Studios. Thank you guys so much. The powerful reality of our appointment in our crown is perfected. It is divine. The alicorn stallion presides over the universe. It is perfect. It is good.